I've jumped out of helicopters for a role, directed movies, and delivered news from my living room. But nothing prepared me for walking into a real investment firm with zero experience. I said yes to a challenge: become an investment analyst for 7 days. No script, no director, just me, a borrowed suit, and a computer that seemed to know I was a fraud. The mission? Survive. The reality? Anything but simple. The air was thick with intensity, like finals week in a library, or a trading floor. Everyone moved with purpose, eyes glued to screens filled with charts and numbers. The imposter syndrome was real. My 7-day sentence, or education, in high finance had officially begun. My first day felt like being dropped into a foreign country where I didn't speak the language. My boss, David, gave me a quick rundown, a tidal wave of acronyms: EBITDA, DCF, CAGR, WACC. It was an alphabet soup of jargon, and I was sinking fast. I nodded along, trying to look intelligent, while my brain screamed, "What is EBITDA?" The pressure was immediate and suffocating. My first task: read a company's quarterly report. 100 pages of dense tables, footnotes, and legal disclaimers. I stared at the balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement. Just columns of numbers to me. I spent 2 hours on the first page, reading the same paragraph over and over, hoping it would make sense. It didn't. The office was shockingly quiet. No shouting, no chaos, just the hum of keyboards and murmurs about market caps and PE ratios. Everyone was in a state of intense focus, like surgeons dissecting companies with spreadsheets. The silence was louder than noise, filled with the weight of expectation. By lunchtime my head was throbbing. I'd accomplished nothing except highlighting words I didn't know, which was most of them. I watched the other analysts, moving through their models with elegance and speed. I'd never felt so out of my depth. Day one was a brutal lesson in humility. I wasn't just an amateur, I was a liability. And the week had only just begun. My idea of an investment analyst came straight from Hollywood: slick suits, champagne lunches, dramatic phone calls. The reality? Far less glamorous, infinitely more beige. The job wasn't about yelling, it was about whispering. Not big parties, but big spreadsheets. The most dramatic thing on day two was the printer running out of toner. The heart of the job is Microsoft Excel. I thought I was good with Excel. Turns out I was a microwave chef in a room full of master chefs. These analysts were Excel wizards, building models so complex they looked like blueprints for a skyscraper. I watched Chloe, a quiet analyst, build a 3-statement model in minutes, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The glamorous part? Staring at a screen for 10 hours, hunting for a single sentence or a weird number everyone else missed. The thrill wasn't in chaos, it was in the quiet discovery, the aha moment after hours of digging. The Wall Street mirage dissolved quickly. The real job is a grind: reading, thinking, building, and the lonely pursuit of an edge. The suits are real, but they spend most of their time getting wrinkled in office chairs. High-stakes decisions are real, but made after hundreds of hours of methodical, unglamorous research. Being an analyst is less about being a rock star and more about being a librarian, accountant, and detective, all rolled into one, and I was terrible at all three. Wednesday was the day it all came crashing down. David gave me a simple task: project revenue growth for a tech company over 5 years. I spent hours plugging in numbers, using formulas, feeling like I was finally doing the job. I sent my spreadsheet to David, imagining an impressed nod. 10 minutes later, he appeared at my desk, face blank. He pointed to a number. "This is off by a factor of 100. You missed a decimal point." My heart sank. I hadn't just made a small error. I'd projected billions more than possible. The floor felt silent, as if everyone was watching my humiliation. David shook his head. "In this job there's no room for almost right. You have to be perfect, every single time. Go fix it." That moment was crushing. All my imposter syndrome crystallized into a hard fact. I did not belong here. I spent the afternoon correcting my mistake, hands shaking as I triple-checked every cell. The glamour was gone. The fun experiment was over. This was a real job with real stakes, and I'd failed a fundamental test. I felt like a kid allowed to sit in a cockpit and immediately hit the eject button. The failure wasn't just in the spreadsheet, it was in me. But sometimes failure is the best teacher. I had to decide: quit or learn. After my spectacular flame-out, something unexpected happened. Chloe, the Excel wizard, swiveled her chair around and offered a knowing smile. "Happens to everyone," she said. That small gesture felt like a life raft. I realized these analysts weren't just number-crunching robots, they'd all been in my shoes. Chloe patiently walked me through her model, step by step. Ben explained cash flow like tracking water in a bathtub. Operations are the faucet, investments and financing are the drain. The job wasn't about being a lone genius, it was about collaboration and learning. They built a culture where it was okay to ask questions, as long as you learned from the answers. I started to see that finance was a craft, and with the right mentors it could be learned. My confidence grew. I was finally ready to try again. Armed with new knowledge, I felt a shift. The fog was lifting. Thursday, David gave me a new task. Analyze a small coffee company. Read the reports, build a model, form an opinion, buy, sell, or hold. This time I started with the income statement, looking for the story behind the numbers. Revenue was growing, but marketing expenses were growing faster. They were spending big to get new customers. On the balance sheet, I checked debt and inventory. Were they selling the coffee beans they were buying? The numbers started talking to me. Building the model from scratch, I linked the statements together. When I changed a revenue assumption and saw net income update, it felt like magic. I could test scenarios, see outcomes, and finally, I had an opinion. My recommendation: hold but watch inventory closely. For the first time, I wasn't just terrified of a spreadsheet. I'd built one that worked. I'd cracked the code. I understood what it meant to think like an analyst. The job wasn't about reporting the past, it was about mapping the future. I'd gone from clueless to capable in just a few days. It was an incredible feeling of accomplishment. I was ready for the final test. Friday, the final day, time to present my findings. The meeting was small, just me, David, Chloe, and Ben, but it felt like the whole stock exchange was watching. My heart pounded, but this time it was excitement, not dread. I laid out the story: revenue growth, rising customer acquisition costs, inventory issues. I explained my model, showing how my assumptions led to a hold recommendation. When I finished, the room was silent. David clicked through my model, checking my work. Then he nodded. The logic is sound. Your assumptions are reasonable. Good work. Chloe and Ben agreed, adding their own thoughts. No ticker tape parade, no champagne, just a simple good work. But it felt like I'd won an Oscar. In 5 days I'd gone from clueless outsider to someone who could hold his own with brilliant analysts. The approval wasn't just about getting the answer right, it was about understanding the process and the discipline. I'd faced a challenge that felt impossible, failed, picked myself up and succeeded. The satisfaction was real and unscripted. I'd earned my place, even if just for a week, and I'd never look at a spreadsheet the same way again. So what's the shocking truth about being an investment analyst? It's not shocking at all. The real surprise is how quiet, methodical, and cerebral the job is. A marathon of the mind. The job isn't about being a genius who predicts the future. It's about being a disciplined skeptic who analyzes the present. It's about asking the right questions and having the patience to find the answers, even if they're buried on page 74 of a legal filing. I learned that investment analysis is surprisingly human. It's competitive, but also collaborative. The best analysts aren't lone wolves, they're teammates who challenge and learn from each other. My breakthrough only happened because people like Chloe and Ben shared their knowledge. The human element, the teaching, the debate, the shared pursuit of a better answer, is the secret ingredient. This job is perfect for people who love puzzles, who get a thrill from digging through data and finding patterns. You have to be comfortable with being wrong and humble enough to fix it. The reward isn't the fancy dinner. It's the satisfaction of a model that balances perfectly. The thrill isn't the shouting match, it's the quiet confidence of a well-researched pitch. For me, it was an incredible education, but I think I'll stick to my day job. My 7-day journey into finance is over. I'm trading the suit for jeans, but I'm leaving with a new respect for the people who do this work. It's one of the most challenging professions I've ever witnessed. If any part of this story sparked your interest, here's my challenge. Don't be intimidated by the jargon or complexity. You don't need an MBA to start. The journey begins with learning to read the 3 financial statements: income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. They're the storybook of any company. If you can read them, you can understand any business. There are countless free resources online. Start there. Pick a company you love, pull up their annual report, and just start by finding the revenue and net income. Take it one step at a time. Be curious, be patient. The biggest barrier isn't intelligence, it's fear. I faced that fear and came out with a new skill and perspective. You can too. Finance isn't an exclusive club. It's a field of knowledge waiting to be explored. So, after hearing my story, does a career as an analyst sound more or less appealing to you? And why? The world of numbers is open to anyone willing to try. Are you ready to face the numbers?